My name is Anita Olson, Damon now. My parents were Andy and Mildred Olson, and we lived right down Spring Creek Road and only 2 farms away. So it was very handy to get to school, but I enjoyed being able to ride on the bus with Mrs. Nanstead. And we loved it because we were the last ones picked up. We'd see her go up the road as far as Sandburg, so we knew we had like 2 more minutes so that we'd watch out the window on cold days. Here comes a bus, get out there, guys! And so Mrs. Nanstead was a great driver for us, and she brought the lunch afterwards, as Julie said, and my brothers also went to school here, Cal and Ken. They'll be coming too, but some of the extra memories that I think of with my teachers, Mrs. Nortman and Mrs. McManners, is their beautiful penmanship. I remember the teacher's schedule for the day on their desk, laying open the book of what was coming up, and it was always written exactly in perfect penmanship. And on the chalkboards, I think writing on chalkboards is the hardest thing to do, and that always looked perfect. And so they set the example that I remember looking at the alphabet chart along the wall and really trying hard to replicate those letters. The only letter Q, I thought that does not look like a Q, it looks like a 2, so I did it when I had to, but I never write my Q's that way anymore. I'll make it as an O with a line in the bottom. And I think this was the oldest style of penmanship. And when I was here, we had a different chart that had both cursive and then the manuscript or the printing below it, so that we really concentrated on learning first the basic printed and then learned the cursive when we were maybe in 3rd grade or so. With my teachers too, one thing I remember is Mrs. Nortman had Jergens hand lotion sitting on the corner of her desk, and I thought it was the most wonderful smelling lotion in the world, and maybe sometime in my life I'd be able to get Jergens lotion to have at home. The teachers were really respected, so I don't recall that discipline was a problem. As the others said, it was like a big family. We respected one another, we watched out for one another. The older kids we really looked up to when they would help us with things. And at recess time now, I can't imagine 1st graders through 8th graders all out there playing together. But it was fun hearing how the rules that they created to make it compatible for all ages to work together it really worked out. Annie over the woodshed was my favorite game. Learning to throw that ball as hard as we could and get it over and sneak around the edges of the building to try to catch people on. Great memories at recess. Another thing that we were talking about with my brothers last night was things that we learned. The weekly reader, which I'm going to add into one of the booklets. The weekly reader was a great way to learn current events. So we looked online and found this one, and it's "Moon Suits Will Protect Spacemen" was the title of it. And the picture on it is just hilarious. The suit, so I'll keep that out for people to look at. But besides always something current that was going on inside, there were activity parts where you'd fill in the blank to answer the questions about what article you had read, or there might be a word puzzle or something, and I still love doing word puzzles, so maybe the weekly reader is where I got started doing that. I'm not sure. My classmates, there were 4 in my class: Connie Bainup, Steve Swisher, Jim Thomas, and myself. We went here from 1956 until the school closed in 1963. We finished out that 62-63 school year and then went into Black River. I thought the hardest thing switching to school was my classmates in 8th grade had French class in 7th grade, and we had to try to be starting in French when we haven't had 1 year. So that was my headache class going into school. But otherwise, this education prepared us so well for life and for going on into the other grades, high school, and many on to college. And it's fun to hear the careers that everyone went into. One thing that probably wouldn't happen today that was fun for me and my classmates, not only Connie, but also Jackie Sandberg, who was a year older than us. Our teacher, Mrs. Nortman, invited us for a sleepover at her house one time. It must have been, I don't know, we must have been probably in 6th grade or so. So we packed a bag and we rode to her house, which is over in Shamrock area, I believe. And it was really fun to have dinner at her house. And there was a pull-out couch in the living room, so all three of us, we girls, slept on that couch. But before going to bed, Mrs. Nortman said, "Now, I know that sometimes kids like to get up in the night and have a snack. And I'll show you where there's something you can get. But this is the only thing you can get." Oh, wow. I never get up in the night to have a snack. So she showed us in her kitchen a drawer where there were raisins. I thought, oh, raisins. I don't think I really have eaten raisins, but it's a snack. Okay, so we did get up in the night and eat some raisins. Let's see. Another thing I remember from the Sandberg family was Jerry Sandberg. It would be before I started going to school here, so I would have been really young, but I remember the Christmas program where we pulled the curtain across the stage to between acts of things. And Jerry was maybe the 8th grader at that time, but he recited the entire story, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." And I listened, and he had it all memorized, and everything was perfect. And I thought, I could never do that. If I get to be that age, what am I going to have to do with the program? But Jerry did it perfectly. The Let's Sing radio broadcast from the Wisconsin School of the Air was, I think, probably one of my favorite parts of school. And so when we started reminiscing about things, I said, I remember the theme song. Sing, sing the whole day through, don't let your troubles bother you. A song will always see you through, so sing, just sing. And I found it in one of the books over there, so I think we should have a theme song for practice for anybody that remembers that. And I think it has been my theme for my whole life, is that music makes my heart happy. And that's maybe why I loved music so much. All the students that were in school in the last year are dressed in Irish costumes. They're at the Rally Day event, which was held at the fairgrounds. Each school on that year was to present something about a country. And I remember that our mothers purchased just crepe paper that came in a big tall piece like this and made skirts for us. And then we must have learned Irish songs, or I think maybe a little Irish dance too. And so we presented that at Rally Day. And the picture is taken in front of the Methodist Church, as far as I can recall. And it seems to me that the Best Is Yet to Be Club, a women's group, invited us to come and present the program at the school. So I think that would be the story behind that photo. Oh yeah, here's one more note. Mrs. Nortman received a couple of awards as a teacher here at the school, and there's newspaper clipping articles about that in the binder that's over by the bulletin board. And one of them, she was a Teacher of the Month, and she earned a trip to Madison, and she was able to take some students with her. So the article even lists who the people were that drove the cars and drove us to Madison. It was my classmates, and I think Jackie, and would have to look at the list again to remember how many students were able to go. Just the upper grade students went, and parents like, I think, Mr. and Mrs. Sandberg, Mr. and Mrs. Bush were driving. And then they gave us a tour of the Capitol and also a tour of the State Historical Society. And another time, Mrs. Nortman won an award, and she received a flag for that award. So we had some excellent teachers, and being at this school was the best thing in the world.
Maybe teachers that you had, and then basically anything you want to share since you've got it kind of typed out.
I've got it. I'm all set.
Okay. All right.
Okay, my name is Julie Sandberg Ruiz now. I attended the Spring Creek School from 1957 to 1962. My teacher is Mrs. Nortman, taught my grades 1 through 4, and Mrs. McManners taught grade 5 from 61 to 62. Attending a one-room school was absolutely the best experience. We were one big family. The teacher's desk and lesson table was located at the front of the room and the blackboards. We had 6 grades with 1 to 4 students in each grade. When it was time for a subject lesson, a single grade would sit at the table in front and the teacher would give her lesson. Even though the rest of the students could hear, we were all responsible to get our work done. If we had a problem or question, the older kids were our tutors. All students had chores to maintain the schoolhouse. In the morning, the flag was raised with everyone reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Water needed to be pumped each morning for the bubbler, washing hands and doing dishes. Prior to the movie Christmas Story, Bobby Cook was taking his turn pumping water in the winter. He put his tongue on the handle. Is it a guy thing? The teacher had to use warm water to get his tongue off. Hot lunch was brought to Black River Falls by Connie Nanstead in her mint green station wagon. Never forget it. A hot plate was used to keep it warm until lunchtime. Our desks were our tables. Napkins, straws, silverware, and milk were all set on each desk. The older kids would serve our food on plates and we carried them back to our desk. After lunch, all the dishes were washed and put away. Excess food was dumped in a hole at the back of the property. At the end of the day, blackboards were washed, erasers were taken outside to beat the chalk out of them, water emptied, outdoor bathrooms swept, floors swept, and the flag properly lowered and folded without ever touching the ground. We had recess mid-morning and afternoon. We played kickball, hide and seek, anti-over, and softball, along with swinging. In the winter, we had to be creative, either inside or out, depending on the weather. One winter day, it was 50 degrees below zero, and our little school stayed open. When playing kick the can, a person would guard the can and the rest of us tried to hide to get to the can before the guard would see you. We weren't supposed to hide in the ditch across the road, but we got away with it anyway. Anita Olson was so slim, she could hide behind a small tree and get to the can to win. Some of the boys would try to swing over the top of the swing, set to no avail. For those who fell out, they got their wind knocked out of them. The teacher was also our nurse for any injuries and goose eggs on our heads running around the building corners. Art, music, and gym were once a month, and the teachers from Black River Falls would come out and instruct us. I remember a visitor coming to our little school to observe one day. He was the first black person we had ever seen. He watched our lessons and he played with us during recess. It was a good experience. Once a month, a box of library books would be exchanged from the Black River Library, so we would have new books to check out and read. The outdoor bathrooms were at the back of the property, boys at the left corner and girls on the right. One day, The boys' curiosity got the best of them, and they decided to peek in the wall holes of the girls' bathroom. The girls sitting couldn't get off, and the ones waiting couldn't sit down. Connie Baina took the broom and started sticking the handle through the eye holes. None of the boys lost an eye, but they sure got in trouble. We were blessed to have experienced a one-room school and education. Many thanks to both Mrs. Nortman and Mrs. McManners for giving us the best formative years. God bless them. Thank you.
That was very good.
Okay. I need a
Story.
That's how much the school meant to me in doing this winter.
Okay, well, to start off, you can just say your name and if you remember the years that you went to school here and the grades that you went.
Okay, my name is Dick Olson. I've lived here all my life on a farm about a mile up the road. And we walked to school every day for 8 years. And I had a brother and a sister, and we always carried our lunch. And we had some good times.
And do you remember the years that you went to school here?
I was born in 31, so I think, and that would make, I was about 5 years old, maybe 6 years old when I started, so that'd be about 37 or 36 when I started school here.
And did you go all 8?
All 8 years. And after the 8th year, they started to close it down. And I still remember my teachers, Wilma Emerson, Ruby Stampsted, Norma Krimigar, Hazel Sampson, and let's see. Yeah. Okay. That's what I remember now. And they were good teachers. We used to play pretty hard on the playground. One day, Daryl Kirsting and he was coming around this corner and I was going that way. And he ran into me and he buried his tooth right in my forehead. And that was a memorable thing. Because I remember they brought me in and laid me on the desks someplace. But we used to play a lot. And one day, I come around the corner, I was on a wagon. Someone was pushing me and someone came with a wagon on the other way and we collided. And I said a bad word and Wilma Emerson caught me. And she told me, I want you to write 1,000 times. I will not swear again.
And did you do that on the blackboard?
I never did.
Did you do it on the blackboard? Did you have to do it on the
I
blackboard?
did it on paper, but I was a slow writer and
Oh.
it took me forever. But, and then at noon we always brought a hot lunch like beans or peas or something. And we'd warm it up in that back room here in the hot water. So we'd have something, a warm vegetable at noon. So that's what we got for vegetables. But some of the kids that came to school had large sandwiches. I never had one of those, but I'll tell you, they didn't look very good. But things were tough, and then the government come out with peanut butter, free peanut butter, so they didn't have to use lard anymore. That was a big day.
So when you went to school, the depression was still pretty much going.
Well, it was pretty much near the end, sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah,
Before-
we had the
before the war.
Depression and the Great Drought in the 30s, you know, that was really, really tough. I remember my dad selling a little pig for 18 cents. And then, and I remember we used to have to take these goiter pills.
And how did they taste?
You know, to me they were good. I always wanted to get more than one, but they wouldn't let me have anymore. So, but,
do you remember any times like how discipline was? You had mentioned the teacher making you write.
that was a lot of discipline for me, because I was a slow writer, and
Did it? I mean, in the early days, if kids would get a paddling if they.
you know, I don't remember any paddling. I remember some girls getting their hair jerked, but I don't remember any paddling. Do you remember any, Arlene? No?
No, I don't.
No, I don't. I think that was kind of done away with by then, maybe.
Yeah. And do you recall any of your friends that you had here at the school?
In my class, there was Roger Kirsting, Juanita Bullock. Does anybody know where any of the Bullocks are? Don't know. And Lyle Bullock. Oh, and that's my first year, Don Hortum. He lived over the hill here. And I guess that was about all that's in my class. But it was,
And did you have a favorite subject in school?
I liked history. Hated math. But I got by. But history interests me, and it still does. I like history. And some of those books were still here that I had in that library there. And we had a woodshed down here, and we had to carry wood in the wintertime to keep us warm. We had a big wood stove there with a jacket around it, so you wouldn't get burned. And that's how we got our heat.
Did it take a while to warm this room up?
The teacher always had to get here early to warm the place up, to get things going.
Yeah, just like Julie had shared, if it was 50 below zero, you still went to school. So to get this little room to warm up and stay warm.
They didn't call it off them days. No matter how much snow or how cold it was, we went to school, didn't we?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, you mentioned that you walked to school every day. So was it uphill both ways?
Well, when it was real bad, our dad took the team of horses in a sleigh and took us to school. That wasn't very often, but he helped us out once in a while. That was, so.
Yeah, because the roads weren't probably as plowed as they are today.
Sometimes you waited 3-4 days for the snowplow would come through. And it was a D6 cat, and it would go slow. Done a good job plowing, but it was slow. Yeah.
And so do you have any memories of using the outhouse or any
Yep.
memories of that?
The girls had an outhouse over here. And the boys had them on over there. One winter we were having a snowball fight. And I ran to the toilet to protect myself. And there was a crack along the wall. And I seen those eyes, and I fired a snowball, hit him right in the eyes. And I come out, and my God, it was an Indian. We had an Indian by the name of Eugene Clymer. He never said much, but I used to read about the Indians in the National Geographic, and I was scared of them. I thought, oh my God, he's going to get me. And I never got over that. So, but that happened. We had a lot of snow. And in the wintertime, we'd play fox and geese. And right out here. And then in the springtime, when the water would start running off, this field over here would get flooded. And then it'd freeze at night, and we'd go out there and skate during the day. Because it would freeze, that deep, and it'd hold us up. If you broke through, you only went in up to your knees. So, but it was a good entertainment.
Did you ever see the Spring Creek ever go out of its banks?
I had a lot of experiences with the bridge going out down here several times before they fixed it. Pretty good then, and it's never went out again. And at home too, we had a lot of erosion along the creek banks. But then they started conservation, and we put a stop to that. It'd get really wild. And now it's very seldom it does, because conservation practices all helped.
And I know one time I was you had stopped and you had talked to me, but you would talk about the days of the temptation of dipping a girl's pigtails in the inkwell, or pulling them, or like that. Do you recall any of those kinds of memories?
Well, yeah, there's some I'm not sure.
Mischievous things.
I said, sure. I don't know if I should bring them up.
Yes, you should. You should.
Well, you better censor this. Moose Peterson used to go to school here, and he was a wild man. And the girls used to go to the toilet. He'd sneak down there and open that back door and watch them. I mean that. And every Halloween, the toilets would get tipped over.
Who did that?
I think they came from up that road.
Is that what happened to the girls? Or the girls' outhouse disappeared, or something happened to it?
I can remember when they took it away, and I don't remember why. I guess they figured they only needed one. We took over. Holders gave it to the community. And so we had a committee. Pat Thomas was the chairman. I forget who was vice chairman. And I was secretary treasurer, and we never had any money in the treasury. But we did collect some money to fix the roof and paint the building. And we built that cupola and painted it, and I took my tractors and we pulled it up on the roof. Then we had to get a bell because someone had stole the bell. There's a rumor out now, I know where it is, but I don't know for sure, I haven't seen it. But we got another bell. Will that bell ring now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we did a little restoration work on just the wood, whatever it was, that almost 60 or 50 some years ago, 50 plus years.
Yeah.
So some of the wood had to be just some replacement and stuff. And then we had, actually the bell was just hanging by a hair. It almost was ready to come off the roof. But so it got all
I heard it had a crack in it, did it?
No, not that I know of. It's in really good shape. But it was hanging by not very long. It would have probably came off of the roof. But
now, then after we had it for a while, people seemed to kind of lose interest. And so it was kind of going downhill. And then I think we gave it back to the holders. They took it for a while, and Dick said he didn't really want to take care of it. And then, then I don't know if he gave it to the society then, or if LMR was gonna move it. Gonna move the school up by the school in town. And he checked that out. This is one of Dick's last requests. And they wanted, I don't know, 10,000 to move it? He thought that was ridiculous. Well, I think they did the right thing, they left it here. They gave it to the society.
Yeah, they approached the Historical Society and wanted to gift it to us.
That's good, because that's where it should be. Because people get old and they lose interest and they don't get taken care of, but the society, this is good.
Yeah, the building is a very sturdy,
Yeah.
well-built building, but it was starting to show some wear, so
Yes.
it was time for some work to be done, so.
Yeah.
And, do you recall any, like events at the school? Like, I know they used to have, there was May Day, rally days, Christmas programs, that kind of stuff. Do you recall any of
Yep.
those?
We used to have a curtain up here, and it was divided off here, and then there was the one over there. And we'd get ready for our program, and then we'd come out on the stage and do our show. And then every spring, we'd have a big meal outside. They had good food. I remember I loved deviled eggs, and I overdid it. But that was great. I always loved the school picnic. I guess it was a picnic at the end of the year is what it was.
And you said when you went to school, they held it here?
They held it here, yes.
Okay.
And you get a lot of people when it's food.
And then people bringing food too.
Yeah, it was all brought in. Every person brought a dish to pass. A lot of variety.
Oh, yeah.
So, yep, I miss the old school picnics.
When you had recess, do you recall some of the games that you may have played?
We played a lot of fox and geese out there in the wintertime. And then we used to have a woodshed out here. You remember that?
I don't remember it, but
You remember it, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's what they store the wood there, and I remember carrying wood, it was right out off this corner. And we used to play Annie over the woodshed. We'd throw the ball over then we'd run around and try and catch someone on the other side. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that, Annie over the woodshed.
well, is there anything else that you can think of that you would think of any stories or memories that you would like to share?
Well, some I've never told. Maybe I better not tell.
You had mentioned earlier about was it Deuce, it being in the corner,
The what? Oh,
and the pointed hat,
Guns.
dunce.
Yes.
Okay, and have the pointy hat.
they used to,
And what was that symbolize?
it was discipline
Like to
And
say
it-
that you were naughty?
And it was very embarrassing to sit up here with that dunce.
So you actually had a pointy hat?
It was a long pointed hat, just like a dunce.
And you had to sit there?
Usually you wouldn't commit the same crime.
So how long did you usually have to sit up there?
I tell you, I remember I had to sit there an hour one day, that was long enough. And then the kids, they rib you, they tease you about it.
That was probably the whole idea of it, to
Yeah.
make you not want to do it again.
But it was good discipline, you didn't want to do that very often. And to write something 1,000 times was good discipline too.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share or stories?
Oh, I could think of a lot of things. Let's see. Well, that's probably it.
Okay. Well, thank you. You really shared a lot. It's really interesting.
Probably said something I shouldn't probably.
I'm Jean Sandberg. I'm the oldest daughter of Thomas and Catherine Sandberg. My 3 little sisters went here, but I only went for 2 years, 7th and 8th grade.
Right. I'm Arlene Mosley Quinlan, and I went here from 1st grade through 8th grade, so like 1940, the fall of 1949 to the spring of 1957. And I lived up on Thomas Road, and so listening to Dick Olson, oh my gosh, he brought back a lot of memories because we were neighbors up there. But going to school here was interesting. Now the few that have talked, it's just kind of, oh, I forgot about that, or I forgot about this, and that. But then some things I was remembering. I was remembering music. When we had music day, there was a radio that sat here, and we would turn that on, and then we had the music books like that are over on the other side. And we would sing with Professor Gordon from the University of Madison.
And we all sang too.
Oh, we were good.
Yeah, we sang.
We were great singers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing that would happen that I hadn't heard mentioned yet was Miss Kinley. She was an art teacher in Black River, but she would travel to the country schools and teach us how to draw and paint and all that. One incident I remember with Miss Kinley, and I don't remember what year it was, but we went on a little tour, and she drove her car up, and we went up on the top of Moss Hill in a field there, and we were going to draw scenery, trees and grass and stuff, I guess. And the only thing that happened that was kind of out of line was there was some heifer calves up there, but pretty good size. And Miss Kinley, I don't think, being a city girl, didn't know too much about cattle, and she thought it was a bull. And Miss Kinley ran. She actually took off running.
She was a big lady.
Yeah, she was short, but she was kind of chunky, but she could run. Yeah, she ran. And so I think that class got cut a little short because of that, but it was fun. And so she was one of the ones that came, and then somebody else that came out would be Miss Webb. And she was the superintendent of schools, I guess it was. And she would come out and visit. We were always on our best behavior when she showed up. But she was important.
Yeah, and we were told that, I'm sure.
Yes, we were told that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. What else, Jean?
Okay, well, there was 4 I went to Spring Creek School in my 7th and 8th grade. And we sat right back in the corner there. There was Bobby Rand, Mary Emerson, Arlene Mosley, and Jeannie Sandberg. And we were the big kids. We were the big kids. But we were good, because in a small country school, we looked after the little ones, you know, and my favorite thing was we wanted to play ball. How do you play ball with 13 kids and all but 4 of them, like, so we made up rules. It was, if we hit the ball over the fence, we were out, because the little kids couldn't get under the fence. And the little kids got 5 strikes. And if they even came close to hitting, we let them run. You know, but it was taking care of each other. I think that was it. And we walked to school. So it was, you had to watch each other, watch out for each other. Arlene went up this way, I went over that way. And it was almost 2 miles for us.
It was a mile for me.
Okay, but we walked. We was fine, except one time that Bobby Rand, he knew I was terrified of snakes. And we were walking home and we'd go down that gully over there. He sees a snake and he's like, oh, pick it up. I start screaming and Mary Emerson's just standing there looking at me like I'm nuts, because she had big brothers that tormented her all the time. You know, she's good. But anyway, that was good. And like I say, we took care of each other. And the dogs would come and take care of us. Rusty's dog would be waiting at 3 o'clock, and he'd walk him home. And I don't know.
And Judy Thomas, their dog, they had a black cocker spaniel. And she would come down the hill, and in the spring and fall, and the outside door was open, well, she would come in, but she was blind, so she'd walk around up and down the aisles, till she would smell somebody's.
Thomas.
She'd smell a Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she sat there by me.
Yeah, and then she would lay there and stuff, and then when she got tired, she'd just go home. So it was an interesting thing. One of the other things that I'm not really, when I'm thinking about Spring Creek School, I'm not really thinking about what I learned and stuff. It's just what we did. And Thomas Dairy, right down there, was a big part of school, because we could bring a nickel or a dime from home. And we could, on Fridays sometimes, then we could go down and we could get a thing of chocolate milk. Or we could get the little Dixie cup with a wooden spoon.
Oh, that was big treat.
Yeah, and different things like that. So that Thomas Dairy was really a part of school life. And that, but then, in amongst all of the fun things we did, and sliding in the winter, we'd go up Moss Hill and slide down. We could really go a long ways. That was fun. But then, being that, I think it was you coming from disco school,
Yes.
you brought some bad vibes.
Oh, wow. They made life interesting.
Well, we, at one point, they put up a bird feeder down the road here that sat on the ground.
That wasn't all my idea.
No, I know it wasn't.
Okay.
That was the school district decided that.
Yeah, we had to
So we
feed
would
it.
take feed and go down and put it in. But one day, I don't know what happened. Anyway, Jean, Mary Emerson, and we went down to put seed in the bird feeder.
And
And
somebody
then-
came up with an idea.
Somebody came up with an idea,
Somebody.
that we should just skip school. It was the afternoon. Now, we thought that, well, the teacher, she's not gonna miss the three
corners
eighth grade
yeah.
girls. She's not even gonna notice we're gone.
We
Well-
talked about it too a little bit, about should we do it or should we not? And it was, I can't remember, but I finally remember Mary Emerson said, my brothers do it all the time.
Yeah, so we did, so we walked up the road, up Thomas Road. I think we stopped down at well, it was Ernie and Patty Olson's farm at that time. And we looked at the pigs, we looked at the cows. It was kind of a adventure of learning about.
Yeah, we learned something.
We did learn something. What we learned was we shouldn't have done it because the teacher got on the phone.
Well, she sent Bobby out looking for us.
Yeah, she sent Bobby out, ran out looking for us. but
And we
did.
saw him, so we ran and hid.
Yeah, so we went by us. And then the teacher called her mom.
Yeah.
And up the road comes Catherine Sandberg in her car.
Barreling down the road.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were like, oh God, they called
Yeah.
Ma.
Yeah, and, well,
We didn't even get in trouble, did we?
we had to do dishes, Jean, for 6 weeks.
Well, we did that at home anyway. So.
I know, but we had to do school dishes for 6 weeks.
I forgot.
And that, nobody else had to do it, just us. It was fun.
Yeah, we did. And we didn't do it again.
No, not until we were seniors in high school. But anyway, yeah, but it was a fun place to be. And out here on this side, there was a bunch of sumac trees. And in the wintertime, it would drift in there. And it became a fun place to make tunnels. And they'd use the shovels. And one time, Jane Rand was in one of the tunnels and somebody was going to use the shovel and they cut her, it came down on her and she cut her lip and broke her tooth and oh my God. Yeah.
And one thing about the school is you had to get along with each other because there wasn't that many people. And you became friends forever.
Ever.
Ever.
Still, we are all these years later and other ones from our class, from the school that, everybody,
I'm sorry that Bobby Rand and Mary Emerson aren't here. I was hoping, but the four of us got along good.
Yeah,
We were good kids, let's put it that way,
Really?
Yeah. You're good. And now we're good old ladies.
Yeah, now we're good old ladies. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, this was a wonderful experience. And Dick Olson brought up something. He mentioned in the wintertime that his dad would, sometimes bring the sleigh. And that was always my favorite time. I always hope, I hope it snows. I hope that the town doesn't come in and plow this road yet, or my dad come home because he plowed for the county. And then, because then I knew Ernie would hook up the horses, and then my favorite part was he put the bells on them. And so it was jingle, jingle, jingle all the way to school. And then sometimes he would come and pick us up after school. But a lot of great experiences that I wish that kids could experience now. Because it's just something you don't forget. But
It was different, it was special.
yeah, we're not going to cry now, are we?
No.
Okay.
No, as a matter of fact, we're going to sign off. 'Cause
We're done now?
we're done.
All right.
Okay.
So who would like to be next?
My name is Ron Danielson. Actually, I lived right across the hill here, on the other side of the hill. We had a farm there, and I was in first grade in 1951. I had a bunch of brothers and sisters lived with me. Let's see, my oldest was, at that time I had two older, but then I think it was Mary, Betsy, Helmer, Sharon, and me. And we walked across the hill every day to school. Thomas kids would walk with us. Hazel Sampson was a teacher at that time. I was here for whole first grade, and then actually till October of the second grade. And then we sold the farm and moved to Wrightsville, so I went to Wrightsville, which is another rural school north of town, through sixth grade before going to Blackbird High School. I don't, being 6 years old, 7 years old, you know, I remember always had a good time here at school, I know, and same way at Wrightsville. And it's perfect for rural areas in those days to have a rural school because there are always a lot of kids around, you know. Nowadays, you just don't have many. Even my class, though, when I was here, was Judy Thomas Dugan and Joyce Bush Arndt. There was the three of us who were in first grade, so. And then in second grade also. I'm not sure how many other kids made it through the same with those two, or they're the only two in the class. Anyway, I just remember a lot of good times we had. I remember Christmas parties we always had, you know, every year. All the families would come in, the place would be packed, you know, for the Christmas shows and stuff like that. So, anyway, I liked it so well. I lived up living in Jackson County my whole life, except for 4 years in the Navy, but other than that, you know, so. And other than that, I guess that's probably about it. Thank you.
Go Navy.
Go Navy.
I worked on Green Bay for 2 years.
Oh, right. Okay. And yeah, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Bob Rand. Lived up the road maybe 1.75 miles. I know we didn't live over 2 miles because there was a law at one time that if you had to live 2 miles away, otherwise you couldn't ride the school bus. So the Rands got to do a lot of walking to school. And remember there's some days where there was a lot of snow and cold, and come to school with really cold body extremities, so to speak. But I think I started in 1949. Thank you. with Arlene Mosley and Mary Emerson, who were our classmates at the time, and we went.
Jeannie Sandberg.
Jeannie didn't start.
No, but she was in your class so before you quit.
Right, but I'm saying when I started here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jeannie joined us later.
They went to this school for a while.
Right. Yep. So there's Jeannie. But yeah, I think I don't remember if we had Mrs. Sampson to start out with, and then we had Mrs. Hagan and Mrs. Shunke and Mrs. Norton. I think that's the right order. And as far as memories, remember what I enjoyed most about grade school was recess. But and I also remember something very distinctly, that I never had been very good at arithmetic, and we used to come to the front, and the teacher had these math cards, and if you got like 2 and 2 and 4, if you got that first, she'd give you the card, and Arlene and Mary would have a whole stack of cards that they got, and I'd have maybe 1 or 2 because I wasn't very good at arithmetic, and I still am not to this day. But I'm glad I went to Spring Creek. Did pretty good in high school, and it was a real learning experience to go to a high school and then on to college for 7 years. So it took me a long time to learn. But other than that, that's about what I have.
I'm Judy Thomas Dugan, and
I wrote that I want to talk about. I might throw a couple of extra things that I get to thinking about and didn't write them down, but I just have never been good about speaking in front of people, so bear with me. Okay, so, whoops. Memories of Spring Creek School. One of my first memories at first grade, I was a bit nervous, but my older sister Sandra made me feel happy and safe. And then a little girl walked in with her dad and sister Ginger. She looked pretty nervous like me. Anyway, that little girl became my lifetime friend, Joyce Bush Art. To this day, I have been blessed with her friendship. Lots of things go through my mind as I recall those 8 years at Spring Creek. The outside games, softball, capture the flag, Annie over, tug of war, and so on. One time while playing softball, Jackie was the catcher. I don't recall who was to bat, but anyway, after he hit the ball, he threw the bat, which hit little Jackie in the forehead. The teacher, Mrs. Nortman, came out to get little Jackie. She got her on the table on the stage, which we used for class. She wanted all of us to walk past her and look at the huge egg on her forehead. A lesson learned for all of the rest of us. I felt so sorry for her. The boys, well, some of them, they were stinkers once in a while. The girls' outdoor toilet had a crack behind the seats. Remember? Us girls would stuff paper in those cracks so they couldn't peek in on us. They would take sticks or fingers, if they were small enough, and push out our privacy plug. Naughty boys. My sister Sandra and I had a sweet black Cocker Spaniel, Penny. She went to school with us every day, sitting by our desks and even passed to class when called. The day came, though, when a new teacher came and wouldn't let Penny into the school. She would wait outside the door for us. As good as she was, I never did figure out why she was not allowed to come in. When winter came, she wouldn't stay too long. She'd go home. Everyone loved her except one teacher. In the winter, we could take sleds across the road up on a hill that was actually behind our family home. We had sleds and some metal saucers. I had a great ride one time. I was going really fast and hit a metal fence post. Well, my saucer became a sandwich, going one direction and me the other over the top of the frozen snow. It was pretty scary. In the spring, the ice would melt and then refreeze, and at the corner of the road, lots of skating, and every now and then someone would go through the ice. Freezing cold. One teacher brought a dress for anyone if they ended up wet and cold. I did feel bad for one boy that had to put the dress on after an icy dip. Do you remember? Mrs. Shunky was a sweet, soft-spoken lady. I've been told that I have nice penmanship. I credit her for that gift, as she sort of made it feel like an art. I don't think my penmanship is that great, no, but I so appreciated her skill. Mrs. Nortman was a charming, caring teacher as well. Because I lived so close, I usually stayed after school to help her. After pushing the desks to one side, then sweeping, and then pushing them to the other side, one time her son, Tom, I think, was home from his service. Anyway, he came in, and he went right up to the front, behind the teacher's desk, and he cranked up the radio, put a polka on. He grabbed his mom, my teacher, and swung her around as I sat on the chair thinking, and I sat back in the chair and said, oh my teacher's dance? I remember that so vividly. He was just twirling her around in there, and I was sitting over there watching. It was just like, she's just like us. Halloween came, and every year some naughty boys would tip the toilets over. My dad and my Uncle Mike would be the ones to tip them back in the morning. One year, Dad, who was a tall, strong man, went to sit in the boys' can and wait for them to come. Well, on the heave-ho, Dad came charging out, and those boys took off like a dirty shirt. Anyway, Dad stayed a while and then left. The boys came back, though, to complete their trick. To get back at my dad, they came up to our house and took my sister's bike and raised it to the top of the flagpole. Oh, they really get in trouble these days if you did that. Christmas programs were fun and exciting. I recall one year that required me to jump up on a chair after pretending to see a mouse. Dick Olson isn't in here, is he? I wanted him to hear this. Okay. Well, I did a good job because later years, a neighbor, Dick, told me that as he watched, he thought there really was a mouse. And the fact is, I've never been comfortable in front of an audience, and I truly was just plain scared. Not of the mouse, but I was scared to talk in front of everybody. My grandpa Frank always played Santa. They lived on the corner farm. He would sneak out of the school and go to the milk house to get his Santa suit on and his apples and his candy. One program, while he was passing out candy and apples, he leaned forward to my mom, who was holding my brother Jim on her lap. When Grandpa leaned forward, his beard leaned in too. Jimmy said, "Mommy, he smells like my grandpa." And I see his face a little bit too. I think Jimmy still believed in Santa for a little longer. The programs were very well attended by parents and grandparents. There were lots of preparations for that big night. A wire was strung up there, and then 2 more were here to make fitting dressing rooms for the boys. The boys were on that side, I think, and the girls on this side. One for the boys and one for the girls. All the students took part in the plays and the songs. Rally Day was in the spring. We would go to the fairgrounds to participate in games such as 3-legged race, gunny sack race, and others. One event was so pretty, it was with a tall pole with colored ribbons. I always admired the girls that got to participate in that. And I had a hard time thinking about the name of it, and a friend of mine helped me remember the Maypole dance. That was it. I forgot. I'm so grateful to have had my first 8 years of education at this precious little school. To all teachers, thank you for all the time and work and effort you have given. All my memories are a gift I treasure. And now my own daughter is a teacher, and it just makes you really realize, wow, how did they do it for 8 grades? And I think Joyce, she's coming, maybe she's outside. I think we were the only ones in our class. But, it's just to prepare lesson plans for that many children, all different grades, was, I think, really commendable. And then a couple of things I forgot, too. I think some of us remember getting our tongue stuck on the flagpole or on the pump. That was not fun. We kind of dared each other, I believe. But anyway, my memories are so great of this place, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. So thank you, Darren, for getting this together too. It's been wonderful, so I appreciate it. Thank you. I didn't paint.
You did good.
Okay, my name is Joyce. I was Bush and Arndt now, and I started school here in 1951, went to 1963. All 8 years we spent here. Good education, we had lots of good times. I don't have any specific story to tell, I guess, except my favorite thing to do here was to play softball. We used to play workup softball. That was probably my favorite thing. And we had a number of good teachers. Mrs. Elvidge Norman was here for probably 6 years, I suppose, maybe. She was a wonderful teacher. I grew up on a dairy farm about 2 miles from here, and my brother and other sisters also went here. So anyway, thank you for all the work. The restoration is just wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Can you include the names of all your brothers and sisters?
The names of them? Well, the 2 younger ones, I have 6 sisters, or 5 sisters, and one brother who has passed away, who was Bert Bush, and then Virginia Young, she married Larry Young, and myself, and then Lorene, she married Harry Bright. She lives over in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And then was my brother, Bert Bush, and then Jill Higgins, She lives in Black River Falls. And then I had two younger sisters. Christy lives in Medford, and Jane is in Janesville. So there's quite a family. Education here. So thank you.
Are we ready? Hi, I'm Ken Olson. Was a student here for 7 years. I started in, I believe it was 1953, and or maybe before that. Actually, I started a little bit early. My mother used to tell me that while we didn't have kindergarten or preschool, I actually did a recitation for the Christmas program the year before I started school. So I got involved early as far as that goes. But I was, I believe, the first student that went into town for the 8th grade. I'd been the only one in my class for 7 years, and my folks thought that I needed to have some competition before I started high school. So I went into town for the for 8th grade, and that seemed to go okay. I carried on. I went from being one in my class here to, I think we had 169 in my graduating class, to getting an undergraduate degree at the University of Wisconsin-River Falls, where we had 4,500 students in the school, to a PhD at Madison, where we had 40,000 students. And so my student body size increased quite a bit. But memories at Spring Creek were very good. We were basically the first farm up the road. When I started first grade, we didn't have transportation to school, and so we would, the Rand boys picked me up and gave me a ride to school on their bike first day of school, and I do remember that. We would walk or ride bikes to school that first year. After that, we started having service. We had Jeep Wagoneer that would pick us up. Mrs. Nandor, I think it was, Nanstead?
Nanstead, yeah.
Yeah, Nanstead, that would pick us up and drop us off. The big yellow school bus would meet us on the corner to take us home. And but one of the things I remember when we were riding bikes, the television was just coming in, and we were maybe one of the latter families to get a television. But when we were riding up the road, why, I think it was Bob Rand said, "Hey, you've got television. There's an antenna on the house, and you're getting Eau Claire and La Crosse." And so that was one of the big events there. But I enjoyed going to school here, even though I was the only one in my grade. It gave me an opportunity when the other classes were up front doing their recitation to be able to learn what some of the grades above me were doing, and so I think that served pretty well. I remember having our poster in the back of the room where, for books that we'd read, we would put a label for each of the books there. I believe I ended up reading most of the books in the library during the time that I was in school here, because I had some time between classes, so I did a lot of that. We also had the traveling library that would come in, so we'd see some other ones. Again, we had good times. One thing that I don't know if anyone is related, my first teacher was Mrs. Schonke, then Mrs. Nortman was the second one, but Mrs. Nortman was kind of ahead of her time, I think. When we would play kickball, she would try to say that we needed to use a soccer style where you'd use the side of your foot because you had better control over it than what we wanted to do with kicking with our toes. And I guess that served well. Actually, my grandson now is on the Minnesota Olympic Development soccer team, and so he's playing soccer all around and making good use of that technique. Again, the memories here are good. Thomas Dairy down the road where we would get treats periodically, having milk from the dairy that came with our hot lunch that was delivered each day to the school. Appreciated the art teachers, the music teachers, that came to provide services so that we were, I think, well-rounded students, and I think that all of us did well as we moved forward in life. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here and to reminisce and to see the school back in such great condition. So thank you to everyone.
Go ahead and have a seat, and what you can do is just start off introducing yourself. Okay, just introduce yourself, what years you went to school, and the grades you went to school, and then from there you can share what you...
Want me to sit?
Yeah, whichever one you want to sit.
I don't trust this chair. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I, Linda Rand Mills, attended Spring Creek School for 8 years, 1947 through 1955. Sandy Thomas was one of my classmates, and Mike Olson. Hazel Sampson was my teacher for grades 1 through 5, Marion Hagan for grade 6, and Anna Shunke for 7 through 8. All three were remarkable teachers. How they handled all of us, I'll never understand, but they did. As a first grader, I would listen to all the lessons taught for every grade. And I knew then I particularly liked math. As a first grader, I was able to do long division. I remember going home, sitting at my blackboard on an easel and making up my own problems. All this because all the teaching and learning was done in one room. I continued my love of math, teaching high school math for 33 years. One thing I clearly remember, the last day of each school year, I was so sad. No school for 3 months. Says a lot about the wonders of Spring Creek School.
Thank you. Thank you. And do we have anyone else that... Oh, and then so...
Hello, my name is Rebecca Sandberg. I'm now Wormus. I was Sandberg. I went from 1959 to 1962. And I was telling my boyfriend the other day, my biggest memory was talking about delinquents. I was caught whispering and I had to wear an I whisper sign. I'm telling you, that was like the worst thing that could possibly happen because you were like branded as a bad. Anyway, one thing I wanted to say is the first teacher, Mrs. Holder, actually rented a room at my dad's cousin's house right down the road, Merlin Matson's house, when she first started teaching. And our library, I remember that. I always repeatedly rented Stuart Little. It's my favorite book ever, and I still have a copy of it. I loved our recesses. We all had jobs. I always tell the story that to the people in Chicago area, because they've never heard of such a thing as a one-room schoolhouse, and how the big kids, even when we were first graders, we would have to do jobs like everybody else, and the big kids would have to lift us up so we could reach the pump handle, and then we could pump the water. And Connie Nanstead, our bus driver, it was a 3 station wagon with 3 seats. And the one thing I remembered about it is she was a smoker. And it always smelled like smoke whenever we got in the car. Nothing wrong with that, Mrs. Nancy. I just always remember that. Anyway, I just appreciate that everybody, all the work people did to keep this lovely school intact. Thank you.
grades 1 through 4, and then through grade 5. And it was a wonderful experience. Definitely remember Connie Manstead. So she was just a lady that picked us up and brought us here. And we met lots of local, friends here. Good friends.
Do you recall the teacher?
Mrs. McManners was just one of the best. Yes.
You can just start off if you just want to introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Claire Vena, and I lived down in Pine Grove, where we went to the first 4 grades of school at Pine Grove. Then they decided to close Pine Grove, and we were transported by Frank Thomas, who lived right across the road here, up to Spring Creek here for the 4th grade through the 8th grade. And he hauled us every day from Spring Creek after they closed it. That's about the extent of my going to school here. I remember bringing in water and getting wood for the stove and everything, so we used to go up on the hill and slide down with our sleds. So, and I really don't remember how many were here. I remember a lot of the kids that was here. The Rands, Marianne, Linda, and Billy, and Bob, and Jean Rand, they all went here. John Thomas, Margaret Mosley, and Dwayne, they were, and there's another girl. I forget what her name was. Margaret's sister. But we always used to, Arlene, yes, yeah. That's about it anymore. Pretty well. We used to play out here in the yard. The old houses were out and back. I guess if they're still there, I don't know.
Yeah, we have the one, which was the boys.
Yeah. So.
It became the universal one later.
Right, yeah.
Do you recall any of the games that you played?
Oh, we used to throw the ball over the roof here. I don't know, what did you call it? Yeah, Annie over, right. And then we'd line up along the school and with the wall here. And there was a game where you pick one. I forget how it was. You'd pick one and they'd run out. Pretty simple games compared to computers now.
Do you remember your teachers?
Pardon?
Do you remember your teachers? Or?
Oh yes, my teacher was Ruth Hazel Sampson. In Pine Grove, we had Mrs. Kranenbar. At Pine Grove, there was a Stenelson, I think Ruth Stenelson came after Mrs. Kranenbar left. But up here it was Sampson, Ruth. Hazel, that wasn't Ruth, it was Hazel. But Ruth Stenelson at Pine Grove and Hazel Sampson up here at Spring Creek. So that's about the extent of it, many years ago.
So is there any particular, like a memory or a story that sticks out in your mind that you think would be interesting to share or something that you would like to share?
Yeah, I believe we used to go on this Moss Hill up here and slide down it. And Garth Massell was in an ice storm. There was ice. And he cut his lip real bad. And remember, and he was pretty got a real bad scar on his lip when we were doing it at recess. I remember coming down here and the teacher patching us up. I don't know, I suppose, I can't remember if somebody took him to the hospital or he didn't have stitches at that time. But it was, as a kid, it was a pretty bloody episode. That was one of the outstanding things. Other than that, it was just everyday play.
Did you have spelling bees here?
Pardon?
Did you have spelling bees? Like where they'd stand up and the teacher would give them different words, and if they missed the word, they had to sit down. Did they do that?
No, I don't remember. Then Grace Webb, she used to come and we get these big pills for goiter, I guess, whatever it was.
They got the jar there.
I remember getting them. Yes. And then you'd have your Christmas programs, you know, where there'd be a Santa Claus that would come, and that was a big deal. And we'd have programs that we put on. We used to, I think, had a curtain across so you could change costumes and put your little skits on. I believe Frank was a Santa Claus a couple of times.
That was Frank Thomas.
Frank Thomas, yes. Yeah. He had an old, I think it was a Pontiac, kind of a stretched out. It was, I think, 6 seats, and either 6 or 8. It was a Pontiac in the 40s, back in the 40s. But at the time, sometimes we'd go over the hill here to Pine Grove. Well, that's where we lived. We lived right by the Pine Grove Schoolhouse. Our farm was. And he'd pull a sled and let us behind his cars. And we'd, in the wintertime, we'd toboggan. He had a toboggan. We'd pull it over the hill. So that was interesting. That was it. That I recall, you know, of pumping, bringing water in. You'd always get somebody to get their tongue stuck on the pump.
All right, well, if there's anything else you want to share or anything other?
No, I've said enough, I guess.
No, you're good, yeah, thank you. Do we have another classmate? Or another?
You recording this? I don't know if I want to record it all.
I'm Calvin Olson. I went to school here from 1st to 3rd grade. Don't have a lot of memories. I remember a lot about it, but nothing super special, I guess.
Who was your teacher?
Mr. McManners.
And you recall the years that you went to school?
I suppose it's from 60 till 63.
And do you have, just any, is there any memories of any kind that you recall, whether it's games that you played, outhouse memories, naughty or good?
I guess must have been during the winter. I suppose it was during recess. We were just running around the school. There was a girl standing out here by the pump, and I was brushing snow. Anyway, I bumped her off, so she got a skin nose for the Christmas program. So I got in trouble for that. There was used to be an old green dress hanging behind the door there, so when you get them from recess and you were wet, boys had to put that dress on till their clothes got dried out. Didn't happen too often. I don't think I had to wear it, but once I didn't, somebody else probably got wetter than I did.
Just on that note, it's been mentioned several times, so there was only a girl's dress, there wasn't a boy's set of clothes?
No.
No, okay, so a boy...
Had to get humiliated.
Put the dress on.
I hear stories from other ones that had different things happen when they went here, but I remember the floor used to be, it's not perfectly flat now, but it used to be more waves in it, so you kind of had to adjust your desk to keep them rocking. I don't remember how many kids were here at the time. I suppose 20, maybe 25. We were going to school here the last few years.
And all in the room together?
Oh, yeah. You have to come up here on the stage for when you had your class to, well, I think there was 4 in my class, so we were one of the bigger classes.
How far away did you live?
About a mile up the road over at Spring Creek, our farm was.
How did you know what time to go to school?
I suppose Mom didn't let us forget. The rest of the brother and sisters were going same time, so.
Did they ever ring this bell to let you guys know?
Just the electric buzzer bell.
Electric buzzer.
I'm not sure if the other bell was up there or not at the time, but I don't remember it ever being used.
Yeah, it sounds like once they put electricity in, they started to use more of the electric bell versus the big bell.
So it was a fun experience, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, he's ready. You can just start with introducing yourself, the years you went to school and grades. And
Okay. I did write in the Jackson County history. I did include, some of my memories of Spring Creek. Okay, my name is Mary Ann Ripp, formerly Mary Ann Rand. We lived about 1.5 miles up the road here. I attended Spring Creek School from 3rd grade through 8th grade when I graduated from here. There were only 2 of us in the class, and sadly I learned last week that my classmate Laverne Danielson passed away, so I'm the only one left of the 8th grade class of 1951. And I just remember all this so well. This stage where we had Christmas programs, the big boys would pull the curtains, and we had kind of a little cubbies back here where we could change our clothes if we, had any costume to wear. And this place would be packed. The hallways would be full. My teacher was Hazel Sampson most of the time. And she, if there was an event here, she would invite the whole neighborhood. All the bachelors came. The the school picnics were another thing I recall. Everybody would bring a dish to pass. Seeing my mom had so many children, she always thought she had to bring 2 or 3 dishes to pass. And let me see, I need to, if I'm standing school picnics. Raking the schoolyard in the spring. We'd bring our rakes to school, and then, of course, the teacher would probably be arrested now. We raked everything up into a big pile and started a fire. And we we roasted Weeders, I think we had marshmallows too, I just can't remember. Back in that corner, we had a big old stove that would, sometimes the wind would blow and the smoke would come down instead of up. And we actually, I can recall, had 1 or 2 smoke days, not snow days, smoke days. We had to go home because it was too smoky. I just fondly remember Hazel Sampson because in later later years I became a teacher, and she kind of, I'm sure she influenced me quite a bit to be a teacher. But as I think back, she was way ahead of her time because she was into individualized instructions because for the fact that a lot of grades only had 1 or 2 children, so that was very individual. And we would go out in the hall, the coat hall was over there, and we'd go out and sit on the floor and read to each other and spell, practice our spelling words, and you know, things like that. And she also was way ahead in nutrition. In that hallway, that was her hallway, she had a hot plate and a big old blue canner, and we would bring jars, food in mason jars from home if we wanted something warmed. And she would put it on low heat about 11 o'clock, and by noon it would be hot, whatever we had. And also in that, in that hallway was her hectograph. I don't know how many of you know what a hectograph is. It was a device, it was almost like a large book, or 2 trays maybe would be more like it. And it had a jelly substance, and you would take a ink. Yeah, there it is, the notorious hectograph. and I would have to help her with that. And then every once in a while, she'd have to take it home and cook that stuff, recook it.
And that's how you made photocopies?
Photocopies, yes, yes. With this pencil, we would, she would write the things on there, or she'd write it on a sheet of paper, and then she'd lay it on there for a while, then she'd take it off, and then she would it would make copies. And, let me see, what else do I have? We had no custodian, so we, of course, took turns pumping water, cleaning blackboards, carrying in firewood, sweeping the outdoor toilets. Some memories were not so fun. We had to walk to school when it was, you know, low as 20 below. One day, my dad and mother would never let us stay home from school. I mean, we had to be practically not breathing. And one day I took my skis to school. It was really snowy, and Dad said, "Oh, Mary Ann, you can, you know, I skied all the time out on the farm. We had a real hilly old farm, and you could take your skis to school. You'll make it fine." It snowed, you know, quite a bit the night before. So little did he think, I got to school, and the teacher hadn't made it to school. There was no school, so I had to go back home again. That was when I was probably only in about 3rd grade, because I didn't have any siblings going to school yet then. And so anyway, I think there are a lot of other things I remember. We didn't have that much of a library. I think the library was like where Lois is in the corner, just that. And then when we got older, the traveling library came, and we just really looked forward to that. And the school bus, we walked, when I was in 8th grade, I think the school bus, the high school bus, picked us up and gave us a ride home. Otherwise, we walked.
Uphill both ways.
Definitely uphill both ways.
I have a question for you, Mary Ann. Do you remember anything about the Helen Mears art contest?
Oh, yes.
Because I think you were a winner.
Yeah, I guess it did.
What do you remember about that?
It was put on by one of the ladies clubs in Black River Falls, and they do it there. I think they still do it. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, they had it. They had a Class A. That was what I was in. The only reason was I had art instruction because Carol Kinley would come out here and give lessons every week. She came. So it was the year I did it. It was holidays, and I did an Easter drawing. It may have been, I may have used watercolors, I don't remember. But anyway, I got first in my class, and Freddie Hempel, I don't know if you remember, Freddie Hempel got first in Class B, which were students like that didn't have any art instruction. So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. And someone asked if we had spelling bees. Do you remember anything about?
No, I don't. We had them just among ourselves here. I don't ever remember any big spelling bees, but yes, just among ourselves we would have them. Wisconsin School of the Air was very prominent in our week. Everything would stop when Ranger Mac came on. It was Nature Talks, and Professor Gordon, the music program. That was, we all stopped and learned all those songs. I still know those, know all those old songs. And I think it was my teacher Hazel. And we didn't have a piano here, but my teacher Hazel, I ordered which I still have. It's called Journeys in Musicland. It was all the piano music for the Professor Gordon show that I could play at home. I still have that.
And it was mentioned they had a radio in here. Was it a freestanding radio or a tabletop radio?
I think it was on a shelf. I don't remember. Do you remember, Jane?
Yes, it was. I remember just a little radio kind of thing.
Yeah. It was.
And we listened to Let's Draw.
Oh, Let's Draw was another one.
Right. We drew whatever was the lesson for the week for that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the piano. I remember an organ. That's why I looked there. We had wonderful Christmas programs so that the whole community would come in and watch us. But I remember there was a curtain that went all the way across there, and then it was divided. And I think the organ kind of was a division on that side.
I don't know if the organ
was kind of like a little dressing room or Mary Ann.
Yeah.
But we at that time they were Christmas programs. They weren't winter programs. They were Christmas programs. But I remember we always made a Christmas tree kind of formation so that some kids sat on chairs, and then there were the taller kids, and I got to be the middle of the star when I think I was just a first grader. I still remember that.
Yeah, that was.
And as I'm sitting here looking out the window, I don't see the swing set, so that must have been taken down.
It's here.
Yeah.
It was here.
Is it there? It was a double. Oh, I thought it was.
Triple.
Oh, yeah, that was it. I remember sitting right about there, so I must have been probably 6th grade or so, because you started here and you kind of went around the room as you got older. But I remember sitting right here, and when we went, we didn't have this version of the desk. We had the old-fashioned desk. I remember sitting there watching Arlo England. Arlo was swinging back and forth and back, and and all of a sudden I heard, ah! And he fell down, and he reached out to break his fall and broke both arms. That's very memorable.
Can you join Mary Ann?
Oh, yeah, we should have you join. We can have you introduce yourself too.
Okay, there's Bob's back there.
Yeah, no, Bob did interview earlier. Yeah, so if you want to just introduce yourself, what years you went to school,
What years? I went to school, starting with 1st grade. I went from 1st through 8th grade, all 8th grades, and I had Mrs. Sampson for the first 6 years. And I'm Jane Graham, but I had Mrs. Sampson for our teacher. She's a very kind lady. And then I had Marion Hagan, right, was the next teacher, and I think she just taught here for 1 year when I was here. And then we had Mrs. Shunky, who was finished out. And after that, of course, then we went into high school in Black River Falls. But there are lots of things. I remember box socials. Did you tell them about the?
No.
Oh, we had box socials, so that was part of our community thing. But I remember that in particular because we had one kid who must have liked me, but I made the box with a sandwich or whatever kind of little treats that were in it. And then you would come to school with your box all wrapped up, and there'd be an auction for your box. And my father knew that this kid was going to bid against me, so he kept bidding and bidding and bidding it up. But my dad got caught. and Alan quit. so that was the end of the box social kind of thing. But that was great. And I thought one of the advantages of going to this school, I ended up being a teacher as Mary Ann did, and my other sister did too, but I found one of the advantages of going to a rural school like this is that you not only heard the reading class that you were supposed to be listening to, but you heard it year after year after year. I don't think there was anyone who came out of the school who didn't know the basics. Because if you missed it 1 year, you got it the next. And those who were a little bit more precocious, like my older sister mentioned this, or my next younger sister mentioned that she knew how to divide because she had listened to the lessons from the older kids kind of thing. So there was a real advantage to that. So those are my memories. I have others, but that's
We're on record, Jane, be careful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was, and I'm looking at that window. I don't think we had that style window. Or maybe we did, but I remember
the shades.
Not everybody was well behaved. Most kids were though. We really respected the teacher.
Yeah, we had our share of bullies.
I remember one time I was sitting in that part of the room, and this one fellow had some kind of a disagreement with Mrs. Sampson. I don't know what it was all about. I can't remember. At the time I knew, but I remember him lifting up his desktop, because we had the different kind then, individual desks. But he lifted up the desktop and jumped out the window and went home. But he ended up being escorted back by his parents by the end of the day. So, parents supported teachers then. Do you have any questions for me? Okay.
What year you?
If I was 6, it would have been 1946.
1946?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I'm an old person.
No. In 1946, Pakistan was not even a country.
Thanks a lot.
It was a British colony then.
Yes. And that was the end of the war too, but I have very few memories about the end of the war because I only remember going, I think, into town. It must have been when they just ended and they had some celebration
downtown. It was
a
Victory, a VJ Day. I think it was in August of 45.
I remember that was a really big deal. They must have had a parade and the whole
Dad and Mom piled all the kids in the car. It was at night. It was so much fun to go to Black River.
So
I think this gentleman, Jane, has just been elected to the school board. No, you right here with a red shirt.
I am?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm elected to the school board. So you folks,
good for you for doing that.
Yes. So you folks have a school board back then in 1946?
Oh yeah.
We must have.
Oh, we had school boards, I think.
I know we had the county superintendent come to visit the school every once in a while. It's part of her job, I think, to make sure that things are going all right in the rural schools. So she'd come out and observe, like for the morning, and then stay for lunch. And when I first came in, I went into that little room because I remember that little room as being quite a bit bigger than that. But when we first started school here, we would bring our own lunch in a box or whatever kind of thing. But then sometime during the time that I was in school, they started bringing hot lunch out from the Black River High School.
When I was in 8th grade.
So at that point, then we had to take care of serving and cleaning up the dishes and all that. And I remember the Rand family must have had some kind of a deal, so we got a free lunch out of it. So one of us got to do it every
Yeah,
week.
there were so
And we-
many of us, that
yeah.
one of us got
I
to do
remember
it.
spending quite a bit of time in that little room back there. Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, do you have anything else you want to share? Otherwise,
I think, no, I think.
you're right. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Do we have anyone else, or we have any else left that went to school?
Journeys in Musicland, a program to develop ability in music, designed for upper grade girls and boys in Wisconsin, and conducted for the 24th consecutive year by Professor Gordon. And now, here's Professor Gordon.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Well, this is a lovely day, and we have a lovely group of children visiting us today. We have from the Hood Creek School down in Racine County, the Dodgeville Public Schools, the 4th and 5th grades, and the Walnut Hollow School, Blue Mounds. And I tell you, they can sing. You just listen to them. They're going to help out a lot today. Now, children, we've been starting at the beginning of our songbook, just having a kind of a good time singing. Suppose we start the last song in the book today, Bendemeer Stream. Let's sing that as our first song. That's on page 22. Miss Rossman and Miss Trudy will play an introduction. Play the last phrase or two. All right, everybody ready for that first word? Ready? Sing.
Sing, sing the whole day through, don't let your troubles bother you. A song will always see you through, so sing, just sing. Sing, sing the whole day long, and write the things that seem all wrong. You do it quickly with a song, so sing, just sing. Don't whistle while you work, nor dance if there's a doubt. Just take a breath and open wide and let a song roll out. Sing, sing the whole long day, the best of things will come your way, and you'll feel light and bright and gay. If you will only sing, let's sing, let's sing, let's sing.